What is going on, everyone? It's AP over here at Rumpier Sports. We're bringing you the Strokes Gained podcast. I'm here with my main man, Rubio Dimes. Rubio, what's going on, buddy?
Going good. Started the job today, so it's been a busy one, but having fun.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Unfortunately, tonight, our guy Uncle T had something, an emergency come up, so it's just going to be me and Rubio breaking down the Bermuda Championship. The Bermuda is going to take us to Port Royal Golf Club, and last year Brendan Todd ran away with this one with a score of like 24 under par. But before we get to that, I don't want to spend a lot of time on last week. I always see the tweets like, oh, stop talking about the week before. Stop. Just get onto the stuff. We're going to do that. And I don't want to spend much time on it anyway because those no-cut events suck. But Rubio, how was your week?
Same story as the week before. It was looking good into Sunday. And then, Sunday hits and feels like all my guys were hitting over par. The Phil Love was really working out. He may not have been great on the leaderboard, but he was one of the top birdie getters of the week up until Sunday. And then he goes out, shoots 5 over. Webb Simpson chokes. And it was just one of those weeks where it's like, moving on to next week, I love to play like, my Brendan Todd's at 11.1K instead of those stud golfers that we can get. But this week it'll be a lot of fun. Last week, a distant memory at this point.
Yeah, I agree. And, after watching day one, I love the Showdown. I love our Showdown content. So I got to ask everyone real quick, like and subscribe. This is free tonight. For premium members, the playbook's going to come out tonight. Our core plays are always going to be out usually the night before the event starts. So expect that Wednesday between lunchtime to maybe later in the evening. All that stuff's going to be out for our members. Anyways, for me last week, regarding the Showdown stuff, like after watching round one, Patrick Cantlay was just killing it. And so I'm like, I got to start playing this guy because I didn't have him on any of my main squads. I knew he was a good tournament play. So I made up for my week by just hammering him on my Showdown builds, which was nice and it paid off and it was really good. So anyways, that's going to be how this event is too. Like our Showdown content is always up. Usually about 2 to 3 hours after the event finishes for that day. It's up. It's ready to go for the next day. Personally, my favorite rounds are rounds 2 and 3 because we have an idea of how the course is playing. Anyways, let's get to Port Royal Golf Club. This is out in the Bermuda. This is a par 71 course. It's right around 6,800 yards. It's a really short course. We got 3 par 5s. Look, if there's no wind, this course is going to play really easy. Looking at the scores last year, the first day was really windy, like what we're going to see 3 out of the 4 days this week. And the scoring average was 70.5. On the final day, there was no wind. It was calm. The scoring average was right around 68. So it's almost about a shot and a half to 2 shot difference with lots of wind. We're going to get wind. It's going to be calm the first day, and now it could change. This is out in the Bermuda. It's just a small little island, and so it could always change. But we're how it looks right now is they could have like 20 to 25 mile an hour winds from Friday to Sunday. So that's going to make things really interesting. But as it looks right now, Thursday looks pretty good. With that being said, let's break this down like we normally do, Rubio. Let's talk about this. Let's go 10K and up.
10K and up. It's really tough because, you're not used to seeing Brendan Todd at the top of your pricing or even like Emiliano Grillo at 10.1. But, all these guys, are worth a stab, especially in this weak field. It's like they're worth like, targeting a little bit, it's not. I always have to get past the fact that I'm paying this much for a player, but in reality, he's probably one of the top 5 golfers in this field. I really like Grillo. He began the year really rough, and then he's really smoothed it out lately. And for 10.1K in this field, it's that putter. It's always been the putter with him. He's been one of the worst putters on tour. On a course like this, where if you can just take advantage, keep it in the fairway, get it on the green. I really like Grillo this week at 10.1. And then like Zalatoris has been, pretty dang good, especially like, in the limited events that he has played. And he was even getting priced up a little bit toward the end of last year, right? If end of last season, is that right? And like he's another young golfer, 3 top 10s in his last 4 events. Granted, they're spread out over a long period of time, but in his last event, it was the Shriners, and he got fifth. So I'm always looking for guys who are in good form for this event, especially when we don't have like Shot Tracer available. I'm also I'm always a big fan of Doc Redman. He's gotten top 3 in a couple times and tough fields. So I think all these guys have their merit, but to me, it's like I think I'm going to keep it a little bit lower, a little bit more towards Griot, but I'll definitely have a piece of like Zalatoris and Redman. But I'll let you touch on Varner and Todd too.
Yeah, those are I love those mentions. And look, the 10K up range is small. There's not a lot going on there. Look, I'll keep it quick with Brendan Todd. I'm not paying 11K for Brendan Todd. I don't care that he won last year. I mean, I don't care that he's probably a good golfer. I mean, one of the better golfers in this field. I'm not playing him at 11K. He was my first fade listed in the playbook. Look, and his form's not even that good. Like it's not. So if he beats me, he beats me this week. It is what it is. I can't pay 11K for him. So my feelings. So I went through my research process almost twice because once I did it, with just looking at the course, and then I factored in how the wind's going to play. And that made me, change my opinion on a lot of these plays. Will Zalatoris is a guy I really like this week. He's one of the best ball strikers in the field. He ranks 6th on approach. He ranks 1st off the tee. And I'm always like on a course like this, I'm looking at good drives. I know like the rough here is not that penal. And so like, it doesn't matter if a guy's going to be in the rough or not, but still I want my guy to be in good position approaching the green. And Will Zalatoris has just been phenomenal with his irons. The other thing about Zalatoris is he's looking to get his permanent exemption. So, all he has to do is like make the cut here. So I'm sure he'll do that and he'll be fine. But again, I think he gives us, top 5, top 10 equity. So I got a ton of interest in Zalatoris. Now, before I really took a look at the wind, I was very high on Doc Redman and Varner. Varner has not been good when playing in the wind. Like he's been bad. And so for me, I've really come off Varner, and I know he's gonna be popular. And I never really felt comfortable with the idea of paying 10.7K for Harold Varner. So like, and he's projected to be about 18 to 20% owned because I think he's a name and he's up there, and people don't like to leave salary on the table. They like to zero it out. And, because he's expensive, it gives the idea of safety, which I disagree with, especially when you look at his play in the wind. Doc Redman's fine. I still like Doc Redman, but I really like Emiliano Grillo. It comes down to ball striking. I know he's not a good putter. He sucks on bent grass. He sucks on Bermuda. He sucks on POA. It is what it is. He just is terrible at putting. But, man, he gets – like his approach game is phenomenal. His iron play is phenomenal. If we can get an average round of putting out of him, he's going to be right there. He's going to make the cut. He's going to put himself in a situation, to potentially post a top 10 and maybe win, especially with how weak this field is. So I'm going to wrap this up with how I rank this top range with the top 2, like we always do, Rubio. I'm going to say 1, Emiliano Grillo, and then I'm going to say 2, Will Zalatoris. Give me your top 2.
I think it's Griot and Redman for me.
I like that, man. And then I say we X out all the other guys. It'll be Harold Varner and Brendan Todd.
Again, the rest of them.
Again, if you're listening to this, give us a like, give us a subscribe, free content here, and it helps a lot. And we're not going to be giving out any swag. We'll do that on the other shows. Again, let's go down to this 9K range. Rubio, we're looking at Peter Malnati to Charlie Hoffman, man. The guy I got right there behind me. Yeah,
I was reading your, in the chat today, and I saw it like 8:30 in the morning. I know Coop made fun of you for this. You're like, no way.
Oh, dude,
10K.
I got Coop. Coop. I got him muted.
And you say no way. And then by 12:30 hits, you say, "Oh, I used to a lock. How can you fade Charlie Hoffman?" So Charlie Hoffman's one of those guys. You did your research. I'm going to let you talk about him a little bit more, but I'm very high on Charlie Hoffman as well. Big fan of Christopher Ventura. I just think like talent outweighs any other statistic for me, and I think Ventura is full of talent. And this might not be the greatest course fit. You might not need a ton of length, but Ventura for me is just a very talented player in a weak field. I'll take that all day long at 9.1K. I'm not really on the Stenson train. I understand the Denny McCarthy plays because he's actually played really well of late and does have a couple of top tens in strong fields. So I don't mind that at all. I guess they weren't really strong fields now looking at it, but he's a guy with some talent. This 9K range is kind of bare though. I mean, I'm not really interested in Malnati, but I think Ventura and Hoffman for me. And that 9K range is just bare and bones for me.
Yeah, okay. So let me defend my stance on Charlie Hoffman. I wanted to fade him because my gut reaction before diving into everything was I don't want to pay almost 10K for Charlie Hoffman. Again, once you start looking into it, you got to do your due diligence. I started looking at his play on these tropical courses. He crushes them. Okay. I started looking at his play on these Bermuda surfaces. He absolutely crushes them. Then I looked at the wind. He ranks first in total strokes gained. And I'm looking at, over the last 50 rounds in playing in very windy conditions on this, on courses where the wind is just going crazy, looking at those specific rounds. Like he crushes it in the wind. And so we're going to get wind on day. And then here's the last thing with Charlie Hoffman. He always comes out firing hot. He's a first round guy. He always goes really low round one. You know what? The wind is coming rounds 2, 3, and 4. So it's the perfect setup, in my opinion, for Charlie Hoffman. I'm going to be extremely overweight on him. And honestly, it's just this field is so weak. You could make an argument for a lot of these guys. And so for me, it's not necessarily a price thing. I got to get the price out of my mind. But I definitely want exposure to Charlie Hoffman. I'm kind of coming around on Stenson too. And it's mainly, when you look at the wind, and I don't want to overdo it with the wind because this course is still easy. And even if we have high winds, these guys are going to be able to score. But still, Stenson is a guy that, he's an elite iron player. His approach game is phenomenal. It's just, putting for him. But still, he's probably he's the most recognized golfer in this field. And so, and he's honestly like 9,300 isn't that expensive. It isn't too expensive. So I think I'm kind of coming around on Stenson. He originally wasn't in the playbook when I did my first run of putting guys in there. But honestly, I just think, he's obviously working on his game. The field is weak. It's an easy course. He's gonna be able to hit his little 5-wood or 3-wood, whatever it is. And then he's going to have an iron in his hand and he's just going to pound away at these greens. So definitely coming around on Stenson. Peter Malnati, I think he's such a good putter. He's coming off a second at Sanderson Farms, a T5 finish at the Shriners. Honestly, I might be selling high on him. I have him in the playbook, but again, I don't know. I mean, basically it's been his putter that's been carrying him. And I would rather sell high on a guy like that and move elsewhere. I love the Christopher Ventura call. I think he's just a phenomenal talent, and he's been kind of hit or miss. He's got, a T7, then it was a T52 at the Corrales Punta Cana when I was on him. And then, then I faded him at Sanderson Farms and he gets us a T6. And then he misses the cut at the Shriners. And so, if you're just following that pattern that he has going on, he should do very well this week. So, for me, this range, honestly, and then the last guy, Denny McCarthy, that I would consider, honestly, I'd probably rank him maybe second, but behind Hoffman. It's very close for me between him and Stenson right now. But Denny McCarthy is just so well-rounded. He's been playing very well. He's only missed one cut out of his last 5 events, and he putts really good on these Bermuda surfaces. he averages like almost gaining a stroke on the field on Bermuda surfaces. You know, and that's I mean, he's only at 0.5 on POA and 0.5 on bent grass. So I mean, obviously he loves these Bermuda surfaces. You know, I don't know if you believe in putting splits or not, but some of these guys, man, they have their surfaces, and I think it's important to note that. So for me, if I were to rank this tier, man, I got to go Hoffman number one. I think he has the potential to win this week, and it's hard to pick a winner. I know we're going to get to the end, we're going to pick our winners. I got Hoffman one, and I'm split between McCarthy and Stenson for number two. What about you, Rubio?
Yeah, I think it's Ventura, then Hoffman for me, 1 and 2.
I like that. The only guy we didn't talk about, and I don't want to talk about everyone in this field, but Cameron Tringali, he's a good player. He's going to get some ownership. He's made, he's made 3 out of his last 4 cuts, and he was disqualified at the PGA. I think he's fine. Like, I think at a course like this, if you have a good read on a player, play him. Like, there's no reason not to. For me, I'm kind of off him in favor of these other guys. Did you have a comment on him, or did he cross your list at all?
No, the only thing about Tringali is that he does follow me on Twitter, but I think he follows everyone back. But like, that's the only thing I can ever think of when I see Tringali. Yeah, it's I
didn't know that.
Seems like a nice guy, you know. But that's all I think of when I see Tringali. It's just like there's other golfers around him, and you know, you're not used to paying $9K for a guy like Tringali, especially like when he hasn't flashed the top 10 upside like the other guys have.
Gotcha. Yeah, I agree. Let's move to this 8K range. Let's just do the entire 8K range, starting down there with Pat Perez. Talk to me about it, Rubio.
So are you a Justin Suh fan?
Yeah, I like, man, he's got some game.
Okay, because I remember you saying, I think a few weeks ago, you were on the Justin Suh wagon, and he ended up getting like 8th, right? So I think I'll let you talk about him.
Perfect.
I'm a big fan of Norlander this week. 8,900. He's just like an above average golfer in like almost every tier, and like it comes to the point where above average in this field it might be elite. And I think for under 9K, I really do like the pairing down here with him and Ventura and even Hoffman too. You can get a really nice build and still have plenty left over to build with. I just think Norlander, he scores well in par 5s. I know we only have 3 here, but that will be important to getting low scores and really just keeping the ball, safe. And he struggles with scrambling, and I don't think that'll be too much of an issue this week. And really like him for a top 20 at least. Looking down the list, I am intrigued with I think Aaron Wise did well last year, I believe, if I was looking at that correctly, and has flashed top 15, top 20 upside as well. But a name I'm looking at, I've always had a couple of these players down. It seems like every time, but Maverick McNeely, he's a guy who's a very good putter, but he's also very good on par 5 and really just scoring in general. I kind of want to look at that for 8,300, and he's just been like a very solid golfer. At times this season he's flashed top 10 upside and really has done well in some tough fields, including the Rocket Mortgage Classic. I know that was in July, but it just shows the talent that he does have when taking advantage of a weak field like this. Adam Schenk, he's a guy who hasn't really flashed up on the leaderboard, but he grades out well. He's just kind of similar to Norlander for me. He's just above average in every category and even great in some categories as well. Tee to green wise, he's been very well, and he's also a good par 5 scorer. So I think Adam Schenk as well is a name that I'm looking at for 8,100. I'm always a big fan of Scott Piercy just because he's such a good irons player. It just seems like he's always been consistent, and I believe it's fine for him for 8,500. But I do like the other names around him a little bit more.
Yeah, I think those are good mentions, Rubio. Yeah, Justin Suh, he's a young guy. I think he's like 20, 21, something like that. But, man, this guy can play. We played him at the Corrales Punta Cana and then at the Shriners, I believe, both of those events. And he finished T14 and T8. And so, I mean, this is a guy that just feels like he could break through at any point. And I want to make sure that I'm playing him. So, he's my first guy into my lineups. I love his price. He's solid with his irons. He doesn't putt we don't have a lot of stats to go on for him putting wise. So I don't really put a lot into his putting splits. but Bermuda isn't so far his best surface, but he's still gaining strokes on Bermuda courses putting. So that's all I need to see. And I just think he's a well-rounded golfer that is not going to be intimidated by this field at all. I think he's going to make the cut. And honestly, I think he gets us, I feel very confident about like a top 20 finish out of Suh. So I love him. I love the Norlander call. You hit that perfectly. The one thing I'll add is he putts really good on Bermuda. I think he's a very safe play. He's also a good wind player. I was just looking this up. He ranks 13th in the field in playing in windy conditions. And honestly, I believe it was Norlander at one of those events, like the Workbench Challenge or one of those where I think the weather got bad or the Memorial, and he played pretty well. I can't remember exactly what event it was, but I know Norlander is a very solid option in this range. I agree with you, Scott Piercy. So Scott Piercy is such a good iron player. He's a ball striker. He's a veteran, especially if you look at this field and you look how weak it is. I mean, this is one of the weakest fields we're going to see in quite some time. So I got a lot of interest in Scott Piercy. Like, I think you could play Piercy with Suh. I think that's a fine route. I think you could even, throw Norlander in there as well. Or you could go down to Pat Perez. So like Pat Perez, I was on him at Corrales Punta Cana. That was like my staple all-in play. I thought I actually had an outright on him too. He finished T21. He was actually fine for DFS purposes. I expected a little bit more. I'm going right back to there because you get Pat Perez out there on an island, just enjoying life, after his round, just go and get like a nice, cocktail or two or three. That's when we want to play Pat Perez. I'm serious. Like, that's when we want to play him. And so I have a ton of interest in Pat Perez at 8K. The other thing about Pat Perez is, like, it's a short course. He's not the longest hitter out there, but he is a phenomenal iron player. The short course, it's just going to, absolutely play into his type of game. I think he's a guy that gets us, top 15 upside. I think he improves on the Corrales Punta Cana event, and I think he puts up a nice showing here. Adam Schenk, I love that call too. I think, like, if you're a cash game player, I think you start with Schenk in your cash game builds. I can't play Maverick McNeely. That's Snyder's boy. Like, so, oh man, so I started looking up some stuff, Rubio. Let me just talk you off this guy for a little bit, and then we'll have Snyder talk you back on. But I'm not touching this guy. He just does not, like, he's had a couple good events. Outside of that, he can absolutely blow up. And then he hasn't been good in the wind at all. So, like, when you get these courses, with tons of winds, I mean, he ranks 87th in this field, which is a crappy field to begin with.
Yeah, this
playing
field,
in the wind.
yeah.
So, like, I'm X-buttoning Maverick McNeely. I can't touch him, can't play him. Aaron Wise, I don't know what to do with him. He played here well last year, T3 finish. He just hasn't been getting it done. He's like, I mean, he has a T17 and then he has a ton of cuts, and he's not very usually good on Bermuda. So I'm probably off Wise. And the other guy, Luke List, I did have some interest in. I'm probably off him though. He has the distance, so he's probably one of the longest hitters in this field. I think that wind is going to have an impact on some of these distance guys. They'll have potentially shorter irons into some of these greens, but that's just going to pop the ball up higher. If they have more wedges into these greens. So I think I'm off Luke List. I think I'm off Aaron Wise, and I think I'm going to go with the field guys in Scott Piercy, Justin Suh, Perez. If I had to rank them, I think I got to rank it Justin Suh number 1. And then I'm going with my boy Pat Perez number 2.
All right. I like that. I think for me, I'll be kind of chalk, Norlander and then Schenk.
Yeah, all right. But that 4-man combination right there, Rubio, I think is a very, like, if you're someone that you rarely play DFS golf, if you started this week with those 4 guys, I would feel very confident. You know, I don't know off the top of my head how much salary you would have left, but I believe all you'd have to do is punt maybe like a high 6K guy, and then you'd have enough for one of those 9K range type players that we already talked about. I think that's a perfectly fine route to go this week. Remember, if you haven't, please please subscribe. That helps us out to be able to make these videos free. Again, if you're a premium member, we're going to do our best. I know I just got a message from Snyder. He's working on his portion of the playbook right now. We're going to try to have it up tonight, but we don't like to make too many changes with it. So it could be tomorrow by lunchtime as well. And then also our core plays from all of our golf experts will be up tomorrow, usually around lunchtime. All right, Rubio, let's drop down to the 7K range. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, like there's a lot that I just do not like in this range. I don't know if it's gonna take me a ton of time. So hopefully you can talk me into some of these plays, man.
See, a part of being, a big fan of the, that 8K range means you're probably not going to be as big of a fan in the 7K range. But I mean, there's some talent down here. I know Wesley Bryan's been getting a little bit of talk, and I hate playing Wesley Bryan. I just think he's just so frustrating to play. Like next thing you know, I did play Phil last week, so I probably shouldn't talk. But Wesley Bryan's hitting into the naive area on the shot tracer, but we don't get shot tracer this week, so that's good for my mental health. But I really think that Wesley Bryan, he's fitting everything. Good irons player, really good. With the with this course fit. 7,800. He's kind of catching my eye, and I hate it. I wish you could talk me off of it, but I mean, he's played well, for the most part this year, and even in his most recent outing, he got top 15. So I think it was like a 12th place finish. Stewart Cink. I mean, there was never a course for Stewart Cink. It feels like this is the course. You're just coming off a win. You don't have to be very long. Just kind of consistent. And arguably, he's probably been a top 20 golfer in this field. So I mean, that price probably is a little bit of an injustice for him. But like looking at it as well, I'm not a huge fan either. I always play RCB, always play him whenever I can, even just a couple lines. 7,700 is a cheap tag. He's, at one point he probably could have been considered the best golfer in
just
this.
A couple what?
Just a
couple.
That's
what?
Twice in 3 weeks.
Oh, Rubio, come on, man. Oh,
okay,
just
lineups.
A couple lines? What are you talking about?
Just a couple
lines of what?
I've been so good this past. I've been so good.
Oh
the past
man,
2 weeks.
You hate to see it. You're gonna get messages and tweets from Mangone. You're gonna hear it from BigT. It's all good, Rubio.
I'm gonna apologize now. What I did was a mistake, and I'll be better next time. So I'll be throwing RCB in a couple lineups. Just because he probably could have been considered one of the best golfers in this field, just even 2 years ago. I mean, RCB was a guy I play him in majors a lot at this price tag for 7,700. So I just can't shake the fact that he does have talent. Since you might not want to talk about a lot of these guys, and I even have Sean T is already calling me out in the Discord, calling me for lines. So, but Scott Stallings has a few top sixes this year, especially, and came well in the Sanderson Farms, and I know he didn't do too well in the Shriners, but that's another guy too. If you're just looking for form a little bit with a dash of that upside, this is your range. You want me to expand on even below 7.5K? This is where it kind of really gets messy for me.
Yeah, okay, no, this would be good. I like the 7K, the low 7K range. I don't like, yeah. So like I can. Man, keep going, but I promise you, there's some good plays down there.
I catches my eye just a little bit, and it's just because like Max Homa, he's been a pretty damn good player for the most part. I know the form isn't there, but you can kind of consider, is he more talented than that price in this field? My opinion, I think yes. And then Doug Gim, very talented player. This is where he kind of gets like I'm kind of off the statistic range. Yes, I'm off statistics in this area, but I think Doug Gim here, just off the eye test and watching talent and stuff like that, 7,100 is kind of a good price tag in this field. I always say it in this field because like I probably wouldn't play him in any other field. But there's only 2 guys that really catch my eye. Maybe Boo Hostler, but that's a below 7K.
No, I like that. I got your back on the low 7K range. So hey, Scott Stallings, I think if you're a cash game player, I think he should be a stay. And I'll talk to Hoop later tonight when we're finalizing the playbook. Hoop does all of our cash game stuff, all the, he check marks and okays the cash game listing. He covers the cash game core and writes the cash game section up on the playbook. But honestly, if I had a guess, I will bet you a lot of money that Scott Stallings is going to be a cash game play. I think Hoop would like Stallings over Wesley Bryan. And Wesley Bryan is now projected to be higher owned than Scott Stallings. So I'll talk to him about that to see where he's at. And honestly, I would personally rather play Stallings than Bryan. I know Bryan's coming off like a T12. He was cut, then T31, T40. So, I mean, he's a cut maker right now. He's coming into form. He's a good approach player. He's been bad off the tee, which is not going to penalize him too much here unless the winds really pick up. Then, Wes Bryan could come. Actually, let me look it up real quick. Let me see how he fares in the wind. He's a terrible wind player. He ran 108th. Now it's only recording 11 rounds, so I would have to.
So not many rounds from him.
Not many rounds. Yeah. So I can't pick on him too much from that, but I still think that he might have Stallings. Now we'll see. We'll see when he gets to it. But I'm okay with Stallings. I think Wesley Bryan is fine. But here's the thing: in these Birdie Fest type events, these are the perfect events to get off the chalk. Okay. All of these guys have the ability to make the cut. All of them could miss the cut. And who knows who's going to win. If you know who's going to, these are the type of events I love to sprinkle 10, 20, 30 bucks on these long shot guys to win, because we see them win all the time at these weak field Birdie Fest type of events. So you covered the upper 7K range really well. I'm going to dip down to cover the guys that I really like down in the low 7K range. I got to start with Chesson Hadley. Chesson Hadley is a guy that I made a few different models. His average in the models I made ranked about 14th. And so the stats I was primarily looking at this week are good drives, which is a combination of distance and accuracy. Approach, I'm always looking at approach and ball striking. Every course, it doesn't matter. Those are two that are always going to be heavily weighted in my model. I'm looking at opportunities gained, and then I'm looking at par 4 scoring, because I think we're going to have about 11 par 4s this week. So I want guys that are going to be good on par 4s. So I'm not looking at distance, not looking at anything like that. And then I'm also, a secondary thing I'm looking at is wind. Hadley, checks the box in all of those categories, ranks 14th. And honestly, he's not a good putter, but his best putting surface is Bermuda. So that's just tipping it over the edge for me with Chesson Hadley. The next guy I like, I don't know if you saw Discord earlier, Rubio, but the Duff Man, I think he's getting some traction this week too. I show him right in the 11 to 13% range. I'm fine with that. Look, his ball striking is phenomenal right now. He ranks 22nd in good drives. That's fine, especially for his price. 12th on approach, second in opportunities gained. So that means he's putting himself in a position to make birdies. The thing that with Jason Duffner is he sucks at putting. So I'm already tilting right now thinking about playing Jason Dufner and Emiliano Grillo together in my lineups, but I know I'm going to have a build with those two, because I just think that, look, the wind also impacts putting. A lot of people don't talk about this, but if you think about putting and you're on the green, you need the stabilization and you need to keep everything nice and fluid. That wind's going to have an impact on the greens too. And I think what it's going to do is, the bad putters are the bad putters, okay? They're just terrible. Jason Duffner, Emiliano Grillo. I think it's going to have more of an impact on the good putters. It's going to make the environment more difficult from a putting standpoint, so it's going to even the playing field. At least that's how I read it, and I hope it plays out that way. Doesn't mean it will, but that's how I see it this week. So Chesson Hadley, Jason Duffner, two guys I have a lot of interest in. Now let me talk about Ben Martin. So Ben Martin's still recovering, or he was recovering, I believe. I think he had an injury. I don't have my notes pulled up, but I know he is just fighting back to get like his normal tour card, I believe. And man, he's been a cut making machine. Lately, he's been playing really well on the Corn Ferry Tour. And so, like, if you look at this field, and Coop in his article talked about this, like this field isn't that much different than like a Corn Ferry Tour field. I mean, it's probably slightly better, obviously. But again, I mean, this guy's been playing extremely well on the Corn Ferry Tour. You got to think he's going to get his card back here soon. I have some interest in with him at 7K on DraftKings. Cameron Percy, I think, is another phenomenal play. This guy ranks third on approach. He's fine off the tee. He's not like amazing, but he's fine. Very good on par fours, and he's a very good ball striker. And he pops on Bermuda. And I also think he's a good win player. Let me pull him up real quick. He's an okay win player, actually. He ranks right in the middle of the pack. So, you know, I think Percy's fine for like a 7K play. Let me tell you who I'm not playing. And this might be your Wesley Bryan who tilts you. Kyle Stanley.
Yeah.
He ranks high in my model. I'm not playing this dude, man. He just pisses me off. He never does it for me, no matter what. Like, never, ever. Like, I just never get him right. And if he screws me, he screws me. He does rank high on my model. He's a good ball striker and all of that. So, like, I don't want to not mention him because maybe someone out there likes Kyle Stanley. I don't. But I'm not playing him because he never ever gets it done for me. So I'm off him. Doug Gim's kind of interesting. But I think I'm off him in favor of like Duffner and Hadley. Rob Oppenheim is kind of interesting too. He's been another tilting guy, but again, in this low 7K range, I think he's in play. A lot of these guys are in play. We've seen Oppenheim out in Vegas. This dude went like, I think 9 under on one of the days and just tilted everyone because we were on him the week before. And then, so obviously the week we're not on him, he goes nuts. So maybe it's actually time to get off of him. Who knows? Luckily, we have other guys in this range that I like. But anyways, I think for me, I prefer the bottom of the 7K range. And I'm going to say my favorite two, and I don't feel comfortable about this, but I'm going only tournaments this week. If I was going more the safe route, I'd probably have Stallings in there. But I'm going to say my favorite is Jason Duffner, and my number two is Chesson Hadley. So Rubio, give me your 1 and 2s in this range.
I'm surprised by that. I think Wesley Bryan for me, like just because I know it pains me to do it, but I have to get past that mental roadblock. You know, that pothole in the road, I should say. And probably Stallings number 2. I'm kind of chalky this week. I can't even lie, but I think I'll mix it up in tournaments with like, you know, RCB pivots and stuff like that.
So here's the other thing that I've always noticed on these fields where there's not a lot of information. You see these chalk plays really consolidate, meaning like they're more chalkier than normal because, you know, I think the content, I think people are less sure of some of these golfers. And so a guy like Ben Martin, Percy, Oppenheim, like you could get them at really low ownership. And so I think it's the perfect week in tournaments to pivot off some of these chalk plays. Just like and you got to go in with the mindset too. Like, okay, if this guy screws me, he screws me. It's why I have a disciplined bankroll management process. I'm going into this event. Like I'm not like blowing my whole wad on this event. I'm looking at, you know, the PGA season in its entirety. And this is one event. This is a great event to move off the chalk. Okay. And actually like, Duffner, I did not think would be 12%. I still would take the under 10% on him unless you go to all the other sites and they are talking him up. That is the only way Jason Duffner is going to be over 10%. So like one other thing I'll do is I'll go see where everyone else is at because I want to know because that is really what's going to help to dictate some ownership this week. So, and I know for a fact Chesson Hadley is not going to be high owned. I have him at right around 5 or 6%. So anyways, I think those are solid options though. And, you know, Rubio, if you want to eat some of the chalk, it's, you know, it is what it is.
Definitely. Yeah.
I think some of the ownership will be spread out, especially as we dive down into the dumpster, which is where we're going now. Talk to me about the 6.9K and under range, Rubio.
I'm a dumpster diver. I actually like this range quite a bit, and specifically has one of my favorite players in the world. My first bet in Vegas, it was an Ollie Schneider Jams outright to win, I guess. Yeah. So I bet him to win.
He's your favorite? He's your favorite?
Bryson DeChambeau and him, yeah.
The guy that doesn't wear a hat? Oh, my gosh.
I don't wear a
Does
hat.
His brother's in this field. Does he wear a hat? Do you know?
I did not know that.
Luke Schneider James, he's 6K. You got to play them both.
Oh, my God. Oh, I'll gladly play both. I mean, if he has half the talent as Ollie, I can see 1-2 on the leaderboard.
Dude, he shot. So Ollie, his brother shot a 63 a week or so ago. So there you go.
Oh, shoot. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing with Ollie. Looking at it last year, is that he played this event last year. He missed the cut by 1 stroke, and he actually played the par 5 even. So, he was 1 stroke away from potentially, getting a potential top 40 at this course. He has a little bit of course experience on here. And I know that whole weekend would have turned out differently, but I'm a big fan of Ollie at 6,200, and he played really well. So, whenever I could watch, the Golf Channel and you had the Corn Ferry Tour on, it always seemed like Ollie, I was like, oh, I'll check him on the leaderboard. Seems like he was always like, top 25, top 40, at least. He was never doing terrible, it seemed. I think for 6,200, I'm like, okay, yeah. He kind of fits my lineups, and I'm able to, get those 4, 8K guys, 9K guys, and even just one 7,800 player. I wonder who that could be. But looking at it elsewhere, I really do like Sang-Moon Bae. He's a guy who, I've always thought highly of. I know the stint in South Korea for his military service kind of derailed the career a little bit, but I always think of him as a very talented player, and he can occasionally get it together for a few rounds and be really effective and pop on the leaderboard a bit. He's someone I always take small exposure to, just kind of like RCB. I know that hasn't really paid dividends, but he has shown a little bit of a turnaround. Big Seamus Power fan as well. It just seems like he has the occasional, top 10 upside. And I know the past 2 events haven't been, incredible by any means because he's missed both cuts. But he's someone who pops for me, and, just a good golfer all around. And I'm trying to keep this exposure small. I'm not trying to expand on too many players, but those 3 really caught my eye. Brandon Hagee as well, was putting together, a very solid season. He was coming back from a wrist injury as well the previous couple years. So seeing him get back on the right track, I know 3 of the past 4 events have ended up in missed cuts, but he's someone who I think can outplay that 6,500 price tag, a fair amount of the time in this field.
Yeah, I think those are good mentions. I don't think you want to go crazy in this range. I do think that I will have one rule I'm going to make is to limit to limit my lineups basically to only having one guy at max in the 6K range in my lineups. So for me, Kramer Hickok is interesting. He's been playing well. He played well at the Corrales, Punta Cana, T21. He also plays good in the wind. He ranks 37th in this field playing in the wind. So he's a guy that and he's not a long hitter at all. And so I think he's going to, I believe he's not, I think he's going to benefit from this short course. Just going down, there's a lot of bad plays. I like the Seamus Power call. I think that's interesting. Another guy who's kind of interesting too, Will Gordon. His ball striking's actually been really good. He ranks 32 for me. I think he must be getting some traction in this range too, because he's got an ownership projection of right around 8 to 10%. But honestly, he putts pretty good on Bermuda surfaces as well. If you want an absolute dart shot, just a complete tournament dart, David Hearn, he finished T8 here. All right, so this guy, I don't know if I could play him, but he putts good on Bermuda, and he's not usually a good putter. And he's usually just a decent, an average ball striker. But you got to respect that he played good here last year. Fabian Gomez is another guy that I have starred. He putts very good. He's not great, but he's good on par 4s, and he's good putting on Bermuda surfaces. And he finished 7th here last year. Honestly, the more I think about it, though, and when you look at it like that, it's so hard to go back to back, like to post a top 10 back to back at the same place. So, like, the other side of thinking about that is, could a guy like Fabian Gomez or David Hearn really go back to back, post back to back top 10s at this place? The likelihood is probably not, but I like their ability to make the cut, and I love how low owned they are. And so they're somewhat interesting. I don't know if I'm going to play them yet or not. I got to go down just a little bit further. There's another guy that I have interest in, Chris Baker. He's more for me like a stat model guy. Like when I'm looking at him in our model and the different criteria that I'm looking at, he grades out fine. 10th in good drives, 19th on approach, 11th in ball striking, 20th in par fours. But he's not so great in the wind. But he's 6.5K. So he's going to be on my list of people that I could target in this range, to fill out a lineup. Now, the guy that I've really come around on, who is an absolute punt that will, if you want to spend up this week, that will free up everything for you. This dude is like, you only want to play him on a short course that is on an island where there's going to be a lot of wind. And that's Aaron Baddeley. He's 6,300. That's the only time I want to play him. I actually have a ton of interest in him this week, and he's going to be unowned. He's going to be like sub 1%. I believe he made
one.
That's
sub
what I'm showing.
0.5.
Yeah. So, I mean, no one's going to play him. But honestly, like I think it was Safeway that I think he looked good at. My stats is kind of messed up that I'm looking at right now. And I believe he made the cut at the Corrales Punta Cana. But look, like if the winds are as bad as we think they are going to be, that is a massive advantage for Baddeley, who like that, like he plays really well in the wind. Like I think he almost plays better in windy conditions than not windy conditions. So he is my absolute dumpster dire punt of the week. That I'm going to go down there in that range. And look, like this range can get it done. Brian Gay finished, what did he finish here last year? Like T3. Yeah, he finished tied for third last year. So, and there was no way Brian Gay was priced up. So you knew he had to be in that range. So for me, Baddeley is going to be that play. Let's try to rank some of these guys in this range, which might be hard to do. Let me kick that to you, Rubio, because, I mean, we don't want to spend a lot of time in this range, or, I mean, a lot of our lineups in this range, but how do you rank them?
So, you mentioned wind. I mean, Ollie keeps that ball lower than anyone. He's my number one dumpster dive of the week. Ollie Schneider-Jans, and then Seamus Power, number 2. I think that's my 2 there.
I would be on, Seamus as well. The one guy I actually forgot to mention was Chase Seifert. He ranks 16th in this model, and he's actually good on Bermuda. I had him start. I don't know. I must have. This range is just so big. I must have just like scrolled right over him. So I gotta say, for me, I don't know if I have a 1 or 2. Oh, Josh Teeter was the other guy that I scrolled right over. Teeter ranks 10th in my model. So look at that, man. I went straight out of all these crappy plays where there's some viable guys. I went straight to Aaron Baddeley. Oh man. So for me, I'm going to say Baddeley 2. Just that's my ultimate punt. I just think that, like, man, if he could, I'm talking deep tournament, big field. And if you're trying to pay up for 2 of those guys that we talked about that are more expensive, like a Zalatoris and like a Hoffman, you're going to need a guy that's 6,300. So I'm going to say him, and I'm going to say Chase Seifert. I know he's done good he played here last year too. T62 last year. So I think I'd almost rather have a guy who made the cut, who was there, had the experience, has been playing good this year, than a guy who like finished inside the top 10 last year. If that makes sense. So I'm going to say Seifert. I'm going to say Baddeley, which I don't feel comfortable about. Let's go on to the winners, Rubio. Let's do what we always do. Let's say a long shot and then it doesn't matter.
Okay. I like that. So my first, it doesn't really matter, kind of stud guy. I don't know why I said stutter. It would be Christopher Ventura. I just think talent, this is as good of a time as anyone to get your first PGA Tour win out of the way. And I really just think, this is a week for someone to, break the mold. Dark horse, it'd be too corny to go with Ollie Schneider-Jans. So instead,
dude, his odds have to be
they're all dark horses.
1,000,000 to 1 or something.
Yeah, they're all dark horses, man. You make me pick just one. You know what? Screw it. Why not? And this is an Ollie week. He gets the most random top 5 finishes ever. And just because I really want it to happen, Ollie Schneider-Jans and Christopher Ventura.
All right, I like it. I got to go with Charlie Hoffman. I think, what would it be, win 6 or something like that? I'm going off straight memory. He has to have like, what, 4 or 5 wins, probably, maybe 6.
Yeah.
I got to look that up after this show, but I'm going to say Hoffman gets it done for the guy that doesn't matter. And then more of a longer shot. I'm going to go, man, I'm going to go with the Duff man. Mr. Rank number 6 in my model. Putting's not going to matter this week. Duffner's just going to, he's going to be firing at pins, and hopefully it's all tap-ins. Otherwise, he stands no chance. But I'm going to say Duffner. You got any final thoughts on this week, Rubio? Like anything about bankroll?
Yeah, don't get carried away. Have fun with it. This is not a week. We have the Masters in, just a couple of weeks. So, save that energy for then. But just have fun.
Yeah, I agree with that. And look, we've been getting very close with NFL. So when I look at my bankroll for the week and where I'm allocating dollars, if it's not going to soccer, which some of it did today, I was the bubble boy today, Rubio, and I had the guy who scored who scored 2 goals. Who was that guy?
Zapata.
Yeah, I had him. I just, who knows? I didn't have someone. And I'm definitely playing tomorrow. I get suckered in to those day slates and soccer. That's when I'm never in the soccer chat. And then if there's like a good slate, you'll see me pop in and try to steal plays that other people do the research on. Because I'm like, there's actually that channel that shows all the goals or whatever. That's when I started.
Nice.
It is a good channel. So for me, we've been getting, our NFL content's been on point. Like the last 2 weeks, I've been really close personally to some big scores. And so for me, I'm allocating more to NFL this week than I am to PGA. But honestly, I think I was just going over my tournament lineup, and I think I'll definitely have more in play than I did last week or the last 2 weeks because there are no cut events. Because I do think there is an edge this week. But I always go into the mindset with, I could get completely dusted with some of these plays if I'm avoiding some of these chalkier plays. And I think that's what you have to do in events specifically like this. So again, we'll wrap it up with that. Again, please, if you like this video, press that like button, hit subscribe for our members. Right after this, I'm gonna turn on the World Series, and we're gonna dial in the playbook, and we'll get that up as soon as possible. So for me, AP Rubio, we are out.